when all these other social media were popping up that people thought that email was dead, but it hasn't died at all.
If you were to select only one channel to better perform nowadays, would that channel still be email?
Email deliverability is improved drastically. What could be better than that in the direct marketing space?
Scott Doyle knows the list industry better than most, and that's not an exaggeration. He's been in the game for over 20 years, built a $50 million client book, and helped brands like Cirque du Soleil reach exactly the right people at exactly the right time. In this episode, he shares what works, what doesn't, and why email is still king.
What are the mistakes that you saw companies, customers, competitors of yours do when it comes to list acquisition or lead generation?
It's a $50 billion a year industry, and there are tens of thousands of different data sources. You can't buy a $1,000 list of 1 million contacts and expect it to perform the same way as a list from a reputable company who manages their data properly, keeps it updated, and works for their client.
How many touches do you think nowadays are the bare minimum that a B2B company should do?
For marketers that used to have the mindset that they could trick the spam filter, that's not possible anymore because
E-coffee with experts.
Scott, my friend, how's it going for you? Thank you for being in the show.
I'm very well, Victor. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, you're just, first of all, I just want people to understand that you're such a nice guy. And we're going to have such a nice conversation here. Not only because you know of the things that you're going to be talking about, but because you're genuinely a nice person that always helps with the podcast. But for now, I think people would prefer to listen from you than from me. So why don't you tell us who you are? Why are you here in the lead generation market? What is it that you do? How did it all start? Just open up your heart and the conversation will flow naturally. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, for me, I think my exposure to the list industry began in around 2002. And at the time, I was working in the software industry, managing software teams.
Okay.
And I found that I didn't have a lot of job satisfaction. I felt a little restricted on what my abilities were. And I also felt at the same time that I wasn't utilizing my experiences to the fullest. Previous to being in that role, I had been in school until I was 30, studying in 4 different areas. And I also lived all over North America during that time. So I felt like I had a broader range of experiences, and I wanted to talk and work with a broader range of people.
Mhm.
So I guess kind of the spark moment for me was when I said, this isn't for me. So I quit my job. And that was a very difficult move for me because I was doing very well and being very successful, but I was lacking the happiness that I needed. So what I did was I took a year and I did volunteer work during that time to try to figure out where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I also at the same time networked with as many people as I could, past colleagues, business associates, people that I was meeting. And it happened that I ran into someone that I used to work with, and I had coffee with her. And she told me that she was working for a list brokerage. And being in sales, I had always been very aware of marketing, but I knew what lists were, but I didn't know what a list broker was. So I was very curious about that. I ended up meeting with the owner of her company, and as a result, I ended up working for a couple different brokerages to learn the industry. And shortly after that, my business partner and I started the List Warehouse.
That's actually very nice. And this partner is the same girl that you had coffee with.
No, no, my business partner was a former colleague. He is no
Okay.
longer my business partner, but he was instrumental in building the company and getting it off the ground with me. He had the technical expertise, and I had more of the customer facing expertise.
Do you feel that talking about this beginning of yours with this partner of yours, do you feel that if you were to start today for the first time, okay, so not a redo, but for the first time ever, if you were to start today, 2025, with all the technologies that we have, do you feel like you could, at the end of the day, be a very similar situation, or would it be a totally different one specifically because of the changes that I mentioned?
Yeah, I think if I was still with my business partner, it would be a very similar result.
Okay.
Probably very different if I were starting out on my.
Naturally, I imagine so. And then the first question that I'm always curious to understand is how have you kept yourself running throughout these many years? Because you started in 2002, as you said so.
Yeah.
2002, I remember it fondly because it was the last time that Brazil's national team won a World Cup. And I
Yes.
remember that in 2002, I was 7 years old exchanging stickers with my friends down the hall of the apartment complex that I lived in because it was the World Cup, you see. So a
Victor,
lot
you're
of
making me feel old here.
no, of course not. It's experience. It's as my father said, it's experience. You're very much
Yes.
experienced. So a lot has changed. You went through you went through the birth of social media. You went through
Mhm.
companies understanding that social media was a lead generator. You went
Yes,
through cold call being a thing to not being a thing anymore to being back to being a thing. You went
absolutely.
to yeah, you went to so many changes. So how did you manage to keep yourself relevant across the years?
Well, you're right. When we built the company, it was cold calling. I cold called every day, all day long for years to build our contacts and to build our client base. But now that we have the company up and running, I think what is our secret to our success is that we really try to be an honest, reliable resource for everyone who
Perfect.
comes in contact with us. We really wanted to be a customer-centric brokerage that focuses on relationship selling as opposed to transactional selling. And it
Oh, I
seemed
love it.
it seemed to be the norm in the industry to have a sort of one and done transactional way of approaching selling lists. And I saw that we had to be different to succeed. So we strive at all times to be an informative resource, not just for the folks that choose to work with us, but for anyone that comes in contact with us. Folks who visit our website, folks who we speak to, folks who we meet in social environments. And once someone actually does work with us, how we've really achieved our success is by doing things like really focusing on getting a deep client understanding and focus on who they are and what they've done in the past, what's worked for
Mm.
them, what hasn't worked for them, what are their pains, what are their goals for the future, and very importantly, an understanding of what their ideal target prospect is. Now, once we have that information and are comfortable that we know exactly what they want, we go out and search the data industry using only our proven data partners that we have vetted over the last 2 decades. And once we have information quotes back from them, we use the top one or two to put together a very thoughtful and researched recommendation for them to consider.
It's very curious how similar your approach in your life is with the link building market in SEO. Basically, whenever I'm in a sales meeting, I say the same, and I'm not lying, which I know that you're not as well. It's about vetting the network that you already have and showing them results that match their criteria, not through AI or through software, but through the knowledge. Of course, we have two AI tools that help getting that list quicker. But at the end of the day, no matter if it's an AI or human created list, the end goal is for a human to vet that list and then send it forward.
Uh-huh.
And what I noticed, especially in such a competitive market, which is mine and yours, is that people are very much taking this into consideration nowadays. They like whenever they see human touches or human care or human, I don't know, any kind of love that we show during that negotiation phase so that they can see that we're not here only to grab their money and run away makes them stay longer.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure this is also something that you love doing. So let me ask you this instead. Instead of asking for how you manage to get so much successful, how do you manage to get them around, which you just said it, through the love and care that you give. What are the mistakes that you saw companies, customers, competitors of yours do when it comes to list acquisition or lead generation?
What our competitors, what other list brokers do?
Yeah, what do you see that the market is doing wrong that you know that you're doing right?
Well, what I saw in my exposure working with other brokerages before is that they're very good at gathering the information on the target prospect and going out and getting lists. But two things, they're not fully understanding where the client is coming from. As I mentioned before, the pains, what the goals are, what hasn't worked in the past. You want to help them do something different, do something better, and improve on that. So I think that's been very important.
For sure. For sure.
Yes.
There ever been a case where a customer of yours, let's say a lead, told you like, Scott, I don't care if you put care and thought I need these ASAP, so I'm not here for the quality, I'm here for the quantity. Did that ever happen?
No, I don't think so. I think everyone
Great.
always wants quality, but I do certainly have folks come to me who are very well established, larger companies usually, that already know exactly what they want. And I don't have to spend as much time with them in the discovery of what has happened in the past.
I
They're
see.
they're very used to this. You know, one of my big clients is Cirque du Soleil, and they
It's
are,
so nice.
yeah, they're fantastic. They know what they're doing. So I know when they come to me with a request, it's much more straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cut and dry. They know exactly who their target prospect is. They give me the parameters and then they let me begin my work.
And how do you work in a known? I'm not asking for your secret sauce or anything, but like in an overall context, if you had to explain to somebody how is it that you work from the moment you wake up to the moment that you are offline, how is Scott's day? How do you go into finding and creating that list? I imagine you have your own depository of contacts, but is there
Yes.
something else that you always try to put into the mix?
My experience, I guess, would be the best answer to
Perfect.
that. I like when I have a request in front of me, once I'm listening to what the client is trying to achieve and who they're trying to target, because we have such vast industry expertise and experience, I'm formulating already in my head, okay, I know I need to go to this source and this source and this source. So when a request comes to me, it's not uncommon for me to reach out to anywhere from 6 to 12 different data companies to obtain quotes. And once those come back to me and I have conversations with them about pricing and availability and, you know, expected accuracy guarantees, things like that, it really gives me a sound understanding on what direction I should go with my recommendations for the.
And even if, let's pretend, I imagine you go through this, but a certain customer has different personas inside of the same request, and you need to, I don't know, do some segmentation in regards to a list. The
Absolutely.
list maybe can be with different geolocations, with different uh, it's a girls list, a man's list, a binary list. There's so many nuances and variables nowadays. But when it comes to that segmentation, is there an underused way or a preferred way that you like working with that gives real return over such investments, which can be your experience, for example, as you said. So yeah, it's my experience that makes sure that whenever we're doing stuff, it will pay off. Or is there another way? Sometimes it can be a very simple way to do things when it comes to segmentations.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about segmenting the list to increase ROI, I guess. Yeah, there are many tactics that can be used in segmentation for with an end goal of increasing ROI, and some of them are used very commonly, and others aren't.
Hmm.
But a few of them, just off the top of my head, are you can segment your contacts into those that are quick converts compared to
Perfect.
those that are slow converts. And those are very different types of prospects, and they shouldn't be sent the same sort of message because they need to be nurtured in different ways. Much the same as I mentioned with clients that come to me that already know what they want. They're treated slightly different than someone that comes to me and says, I don't know what I want. I need your help.
Mhm.
So the same mentality when you're sending the marketing messages to them, it needs to be segmented properly. And also, lists very often are obtained and used, and if there's not an immediate interaction, they don't spend time with that
Yeah.
contact anymore. And that is really leaving money on the table as far as the list is concerned. To increase the RO, you really have to prioritize the contacts, especially contacts who are declining. You're having less and less interactions with them. That's a perfect time to step in with something like retargeting, multi-touch, or a different approach. If you're sending emails to them, maybe do a follow-up direct mail campaign,
Hmm.
which is part of the list. Or if it's B2B, do a follow-up phone to the email. Don't waste the value that you've put into that
And the
contact.
energy, I imagine, right?
Of course, yes.
Especially if you allow me, like for example, sometimes in my past I had to build myself my own lists, and I remember when I was building them, sometimes I would get so eager to talk to a certain somebody that was on that list, but then I created the perfect scenario in my head where that person would pick up the phone or would reply back to the email instantly, and we would connect and become best friends forever. But then nothing happened, and then you lose the energy, and then you forget about ever getting in touch with that person. But sometimes what just happened was maybe that person was on vacation, or they were having a burnout situation, or on the much contrary, they were having so much fun that they didn't want to reply back to that email in that specific moment. But if
Yes.
you tried it back again, they would connect.
Absolutely. It's
Some
it's really about reaching the right contact at the right time. And just as you said, that's why multiple touches are key to success. People who are more junior in marketing will send to a list once, and if they don't get conversions, they think it's bad.
Oh no, no.
And that's not how marketing works. I mean,
Yeah.
even the biggest and most successful brands in the world are continually bombarding us with advertising.
True.
That's how they succeed. That's how they stay on top.
That's true. How many touches do you think nowadays are, the bare minimum that a B2B company should do?
Well, I mean, there's rules in marketing. They're somewhat outdated, but it's commonly thought that at least 7 touches
Seven is
have
the
to be
number in my
made
head. Yeah.
before you can expect some sort of, certainly you will get responses before that, but to really build trust, you need to contact them multiple times and in multiple ways if you can. The more
Hmm.
they see your messaging, see your company name, and see your brand, the more comfortable they are with clicking or opening or wanting to know more information.
True. True. I have been reading, especially on LinkedIn, about some companies trying less touches nowadays. As you said so yourself, maybe it is outdated and seven is no longer the rule.
Yes.
I tried it with 3 touches, didn't work out, being 100% honest. I tried with 5 touches. This is currently how I see to be working the best. And what I receive from those people in those lists, sometimes it's like, hey, Victor, thank you for not giving up on me, or thank you for the consistency, or thank you for, sticking around and trying yourself the most that you could. Yes, let's talk. Or no, even so, you tried. There is something here very particular that will keep me from moving forward, but thank you nonetheless.
Absolutely.
So it is, as you said, we're showing our faces around, and we're showing that we're not just a bot. Especially now, I see and I feel that so many people are scared of replying back to an email, and that email being an AI or a robot, not somebody that exists. So as you said yourself, having multi-touches, so my LinkedIn, my email, my phone number, my video on YouTube, everything coming together creates a picture of who Victor is, right?
Yes.
Who that guy on my inbox is. And it's easier to reply back to Victor once I know that Victor is on different places than just a single one.
Yes.
But I do have a question. If you were to select only one channel to better perform nowadays, would that channel still be email, or are we seeing a shift towards, as I said at the intro, cold calling or even social media by LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook?
I think that all of these forms are valid, but To date, there is nothing that has the same potential for ROI as a direct targeted email campaign.
Yeah.
Properly managed with good data and following all the rules and guidelines that you should be following with your messaging, with your compliance, with everything that makes up direct marketing.
I think you would, you,
Like there were times when all these other social media were popping up that people thought that email was dead, but it
I
hasn't died at all. And
no,
in fact, it's gotten stronger. It's just that people are getting smarter and they're
true.
knowing that email is the base and all these other things are add-ons to the email.
Do you, what another discussion that I saw, and this one, at least I'm very much pro towards it, which is less is more in regards to the size of the email, in
Yes.
regards to the quantity of letters, what you're saying in an email. Back then, it was more about giving like a Bible at the first email, saying everything that you did,
Oh
everything
gosh.
that you thought they would love. And at the end, why don't you book a meeting with me? As in today, it is way more about I know that you do X and Y and Z. I help similar cases of A, B, and C. Open to know more. These is the examples that I'm reading about on LinkedIn that I personally try myself. Are you also an advocate to those kind of examples, or do you still also see moments where the longer ones can shine?
Longer content emails work with proprietary sends. They
Great to
do
know.
not work or succeed in a prospect send.
In a
And
cold way.
well, that's an absolute for sure. A prospect isn't going to, if you're lucky enough that they open your email and you've done things right with your subject line, they're not going to read a paragraph.
Yeah.
You need to have a very concise way of showing them what value you have brought to them and hopefully give them enough interest that they're going to want to know more.
I feel like you open a very nice discussion here because, well, good for everyone else that are Scots over there saying what works and what doesn't with data and experience. I imagine you had to break down a lot of myths to customers when it comes to email deliverability and campaign performance.
Yes.
Maybe they had a total opposite view of what's gonna work and what doesn't. Is there a particular example that you remember of a myth that you had to bust out, that you tell everybody, you even laugh? Like, is there a funny example that you can share here with us about it?
It's not fun. It's
It's
common. And
sad,
it happens
actually.
to me all, it's really, it hurts
It breaks your heart
because
every time.
it's really not uncommon for folks to come to me for the first time, very discouraged, in a very negative mind frame, thinking that the entire list industry, if I may be just professionally blunt here, they think it's crap.
Okay, great.
And there's reasons for that. Two main reasons. What's happened is you've gotten a marketer who's been assigned to find a list, and they have a couple days and they go out and try to find the list, the perfect list for them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
without working with a professional broker, you don't have a lot of insight as to what's out there. And for those who don't know, the list industry is massive. Here
Hmm.
in North America, it's a $50 billion a year industry, and there are tens of thousands of different data sources.
I
And
didn't know.
without insight, you don't have any idea who has what, who's
Yeah.
compliant, who has opt-in lists, who manages their data properly. So in the end, they look at costs. As much as I'm a proponent of saving money on lists, the simple fact is that you can't buy a $1,000 list of 1 million contacts and expect it to perform the same way as a list from a reputable company who manages their data properly, keeps it updated, and works for their clients. So they've purchased these lists. And oh, sorry, the second thing about these low price lists is that there are a lot of other people like that person out there that don't have insight. They aren't working with the broker, and they're making these cost-based decisions. So these cheap lists, not only are they very often not opt-in or they're
Hmm.
scraped from the internet in some way, but they're also hugely oversaturated because
True.
more people purchase or rent them. So right off the bat, these folks aren't going to be responsive to anything that's sent to them. They've been overwhelmed with messages.
They're frustrated.
And that's really the difference between trying to learn a massive industry on your own, something that's taken me 20 years to know, in a couple days. You need to work just in the interest of saving time and frustration and money. You need to work with someone who can bring you the most value for your list investment. Because you have to remember, the list is a small portion
Oh,
of a
yeah.
campaign. It's if you spend all this time on the list, there's going to be other elements of the campaign that are neglected or not done properly.
The discovery phase is also so much, and by discovery, I mean yours own discovery, is so much important. Not a lot of people also pay attention to that. They just, as you said so yourself, get the cheapest link list, sorry, possible with tons of people. They then spend a lot of time with the content, creating the right text, the right email, or recording videos somehow, because we do know of people that send videos as their first opening email. They send a link, a Loom.
Of
Loom
course.
was the first platform to do that, right? I
Yep.
personally use Tela, love it. But again, coming back to the discussion, we have so many ways of sending that first email. Sometimes you spend so much time and effort into the first sending, and then you just pick shitty list, as you said so yourself. It's
Yes.
not going to work out. Nobody will even read that first email. Nobody will even open that video. It was all done for nothing.
That's right.
And it's such a frustration. And then that's why I see, and you probably see as well, and those listening or viewing us also see this as well. That's why we see this huge movement towards AI in the sales space, because we are already frustrated. Both us, the list builders, then those on the other end are so frustrated with the exchange of information being done so poorly
Mhm.
that we imagine, especially by the promises that some SaaS companies do, that an AI list will be the solution to everyone's problems. But you and I know that that's not the case. That's not, it's far from being the case. It can be eventually. The last Google I/O presentation showed so many things that I didn't feel were going to be possible, that we don't know exactly when everything will be AI possible. But for now, we know it's not the case. But
Exactly.
there's still the 20 years of experience that you have that changes the whole scenario completely. But coming to my question, what does 20 years of experience plus AI gets you nowadays?
In AI, like specific for AI?
Let me re-ask you this. What are the benefits that your customers are now seeing because you, Scott, are already such a machine, a monster in regards to list creation, that when you utilize AI as well, you're now just sending, gold to them. Is there
Yes.
something that you're nowadays utilizing with AI that has deeply changed for the better your work and the result of your work?
Certainly. Well, what I have seen, I know that AI is for some frightening because they don't know how it's going to change the industry or how people interact with one another. But in my experience in the list and direct marketing industry, AI has had a very profound and positive effect so far. And it's still really in its infancy.
True.
Um, it does things that we weren't able to do before. We could do, but not as well as this.
Yeah.
For example, it really provides true data-driven insight into your contacts, their behaviors, what works, gives us marketers the ability to automate things like personalization and tasks. And it also gives us the ability to predict customer behavior. And an end result of these things is that email deliverability is improved drastically.
Hmm.
That, like, what could be better than that in the direct marketing space? Now, the flip side of that for AI is that there's smarter filtering. So inbox providers, for example, now use AI to do things like look at sender behavior and
Really,
sender.
that's nice to know.
Yes, and sender interactions. So for marketers that used to have the mindset that they could trick the spam filter, that's not possible anymore because everything is smarter and you have to work smarter and you have to work with AI. It's really important. And I guess what AI really does that is impactful is that it rewards, for lack of a better word, personalized high level engagement.
Mm-hmm.
It also does things for the campaign itself, like to name a few, it helps you optimize your subject line. You can segment your contacts into groups more intelligently, and you can predict optimal send times. Send time is something, it used to be so big in the industry and it's kind of fallen by the wayside, but I'm very pleased to say that AI is bringing it back front and center because, like I said earlier in our conversation, it's not just about the right contact. It's
Mm-hmm.
getting them at the right time. That's why multiple touches are so important and multiple ways of touching a client. That's key to success.
Is there a particular tool, continuing about AI? Is there a particular tool that you're utilizing right now that you feel like more people should know about it because it really is something, maybe your favorite, or maybe it does something very well that you never thought about using with AI?
For me personally, no, other than analyzing results, I
Mm-hmm.
know the data companies that we work with who use AI, there's a couple different types of campaigns. One of them is where a rental where the vendor retains the contact information and takes our client's HTML and subject line, sets it up, tests it, deploys it, and then provides us with open and click through reports after the fact. Now they're utilizing access or elements of AI that I know I simply don't have need for in what I do. I'm more of the middleman between the two. So AI certainly helps me, but it's not radicalizing anything.
I see.
It's
And it makes sense.
yeah, it's really that the onus for the use of AI, at least in what I do, it either falls on the client if they're purchasing the list and managing the campaign themselves, or the data vendor if it's a rental list and they're the ones who's managing the campaign.
Right now, if I think top of mind about one of the biggest data vendors, I think it would be Clay. Are Clay considered to be a data vendor by any chance?
Yes, they would
Yes,
be.
they are, right? They are one of the biggest and one of the most expensive on the other side as well.
Mhm.
Uh, do you see that there? Do you see if actually? Okay, coming back to it again. Companies like Clay are very big right now, and they are very on top of mind for a lot of salespeople. Clay utilizes AI. They do their own stuff to make sure that you get signals. Signals is a term right now, like buying signals. You have so
Yes.
many signals all over the world showcasing that, yes, that customer will probably reply back to your email. So you have a lot of smart tools analyzing those signals, which you didn't have back then, of course, and now you do. Is there, even to this day, something that you, as Scott, wish you had that not a single tool allows you to have it? It is just a dream.
Tool that I wish I had.
Doesn't
Hmm.
exist. Okay, something that doesn't exist. Feature, tool, deliverable, anything
Oh
at all.
gosh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, like if you could, if Bill Gates were to call you right now and say, Scott, I need to spend $1 billion creating something unimaginable in regards to list generation, is there something that you could say, hey, Bill, I have it right here? Or no? Say no, it's fine.
To be honest, I can't think of anything to answer that appropriately off the top of my head. Certainly, if I gave it a little bit of thought, I'm sure I could
But the
come up
next
with
time that I
something.
invite
But
you to the episode for your
yes,
second
I'll be
episode,
ready.
I'm gonna open it up with Scott. Okay, so you had so many months to think about it. What is it, that thing? That's a good one. That's a good segue, actually. Look, we are at our closest here, and I always like to finalize with an impact somehow. I think you already were extremely good in sharing exactly what's working and what's not, especially for those watching us. Hey, you guys over there, if you ever are in the need of generating yourself a list, you know who to look for. All the data about Scott will be down the description below the like button. Check the guy profile, check the List Warehouse website. I'm very much sure that are going to have the best support and the best deliveries at the end of it all. But alas, coming to the last question. Scott, we are in this world where everybody wants to sell. Nobody wants to be bought. If they want to buy, they want to buy because they think they are the ones giving them the reasonings behind it, right? So whenever you go to a conference, for example, you're filled with sellers trying to sell to sellers.
Mhm.
Or whenever you go to LinkedIn, you connect with so many people, and sometimes it's just another guy trying to sell you things. This is boring right now. This is
It is.
not only boring, but this is too much to handle. You have so many pitch slaps, is the term, right? You have so many pitch slaps nowadays. You connect with somebody, and that somebody already has a copy and paste text
Yep.
talking about how beautiful their software or their solution or their service is and how desperate you must be in order to talk to them. But we know that this is not working. I'm not even sure if it worked. At least for me, never. But we know, as you said so yourself, we have AI noticing whenever an email is spam. We have people already frustrated and tired about it all, about so many channels where they're being approached from a sales guy in order to become a buyer. So my last final question to this show is, even though we should still be doing and we still will be doing it, is there a way that us as salespeople, or is there a thing that us salespeople should always maintain, no matter the channel, no matter the moment, just so that we keep ourselves humans?
Something that we should always maintain to represent our human element to what we're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
Think to always work with honesty and
perfect.
integrity and with value. I think for many of us, myself and yourself, we are completely virtual. We don't have the opportunity very often to be in front of someone.
Yeah,
So building trust in that sort of environment is different. People don't, they don't often even to get this sort of live video sort of interaction with the folks that they're working with. That happens all the time with me. I never actually speak to them except on the phone. So I think it's very important, especially important because they're not in front of you, seeing the nuances of who you are, to represent yourself accurately and honest and with integrity. That's really, for me as an individual, what I have tried to bring to the List Warehouse. And I think it's been instrumental in our success.
that's it. 20 years of experience in the making. Scott, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for being such a nice person. I personally very much like this episode because of it's my life as well, right? What you and I do are so similar at the end of the day. That talking about the frustrations and the pains and how the other side thinks is always a pleasure. And I'm pretty sure that those watching us felt the same way. Before I close this, is there anything else you would like to share? You would like to, an advice or something else entirely?
You know, I'd like to share my favorite marketing quote with
Oh,
everyone. I
please.
think that's how I'd like to end it. And I just as a footnote before I say it, um, it was written a while ago by Henry Ford. And to make it more contemporary, I would change the word man to person. But
Perfect.
what he said, and this is completely valid, is he said that a man, or in this case, a person who stops advertising to save money is like a person who stops a clock to save time.
Wow. Henry Ford, ladies and gentlemen, by Scott Doyle. That's it. The man knew what he was talking about years ago. Incredible that we're talking about him in 2025, come to think about it. And now Ford cars are colored. They're
Yeah.
not in heavy color, but black. That's amazing. Right? Well,
Yes.
Scott, again, thank you so much. Hope to see you in the next time here with the show with that with the answer for that question. If you could have anything
I'm already working
unimaginable,
on it.
yes, please, please. If by the way, if you come up with the answer during your next shower, let me know and I'll put it in the description as well so that people can know that you already know the answer.
And you got to deal
Uh,
with it.
Awesome. That's a deal. For everyone else, this has been Victor with Scott. Thank you so much. Keep on tuned for the next expert coming very soon. And until then, take care. Bye bye, everyone.